If you're a 50-year-old woman and you don't have kids, chances are you are not going to have kids. At least that's what society and biology tell us. Unless you're my next guest. She thought getting married and having a family would just happen to her. But as she rose in the ranks of her journalism career as an anchor for CNN and later Al Jazeera, she realized that just wasn't happening. She tried dating, that didn't work. She then went down the IVF route and even had a sperm donor. That didn't work either. Later in her 40s, she felt like she only had one option left: adoption. At 49, she finally became a mom to a beautiful baby boy named Avery. This is Disengaged, and I'm Leah Harding. Our next guest is Emmy award-winning journalist Richelle Carey, who happens to know a thing or two about making your own luck and creating and finding your own happiness, no matter how old you are. It's so good to see you. Welcome to Disengaged.
Thank you,
It's great to have
sweetheart.
you on the
Thank you.
pod.
It's great to see you and great to see you making all these wonderful things come true. So I'm really glad you reached out to me. It was an honor.
Well, thank you. I've loved staying in touch with you over the years. And
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, when was the last time that I saw you? And it was in your apartment on the Pearl in Doha. And you were leaving. It was 2020.
Yes. And I
You
was I
texted the
was
group.
getting rid of things and selling things. Yes.
Yeah. You're like, do you want these lamps? And I was like, yeah, I want these lamps. They're beautiful. So you're like, okay, come pick them up. And so
Yes.
I was over at your apartment, and yeah, and you, when I was there, you were like, don't tell anyone, but I'm trying to adopt.
I did tell you when I didn't had not told that many people. That's
I
true.
know. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? That's incredible. I'm so
Yeah.
happy for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for these lamps, and I'm so happy for you.
Did the
Yeah,
lamps end up like doing what you wanted them to do? Was it the right
they
look for
did.
you?
I
Okay,
had
good.
this room, like an entrance hall, that I had put wallpaper on the ceiling, which
Mhm.
is a podcast topic for another day. Like, I feel like I still have
Clearly.
neck pain from that. But the lamps that you had were like a royal blue, like glass, and it matched the wallpaper
Yes,
really
yes, yes.
nicely. Yeah.
Awesome. Good,
So it was
good.
part of my COVID therapy. So thank you
Mm,
again. Yeah.
mm.
But so that was the last time, and a lot has changed in your life since then. And I have loved watching it all unfold and seeing the little
Thank
man
you.
through Instagram.
Yeah, I posted a pic. I don't post often of him, but I posted a picture yesterday, and it was the first one in a while. And I cannot tell you how many messages I got from people saying, "What? How old is he now?" Because it was just so striking that he's like almost 5. But I mean, there were so many people that were like, "Wait, when did this man-child happen? When did this happen?" Yeah, it's crazy that I have an almost 5-year-old, and it feels like it was, maybe a year or two ago that I was telling you I was thinking about adopting, but clearly it's been longer than that. Yeah.
So can you like give us a bit of a rundown on your journey, because it's so inspiring? And there was a quote that you said when I was doing a deep dive on you, that you don't want to let external factors keep you from getting what you want or from doing what you want to do.
Yeah. Oh,
Can
I
you
did say
expand on
that.
that and how that has played out for you?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, and I say that as someone that was raised in a, fairly traditional family, and I had traditional expectations of myself, which, based on my age, being, my early 50s and being Gen X, that meant, you'll get married, have kids, and have a career. I mean, my parents were, they didn't raise me to just to not have a career and to get married. They wanted all those things for me, and I wanted all those things for myself. And I thought there was an order that was supposed to happen to that, right? And I would do some of my career, meet some great guy along the way, and then have a kid. And a lot of that was actually me internalizing the expectations of what I thought the world was saying my path was supposed to be. And as I got older and those things weren't happening, it took a while for me to realize, okay, all this can happen. If this is actually what you want, you can still do these things, and it doesn't have to happen in any certain way. If I am blessed, and I will say privileged enough to create my own life, then do that. That is separate and apart from what other people may think about that. They may approve, they may not, but it actually doesn't really matter if they do. So when I finally gave myself permission to start to think that way and do things like that, then I started building the life I want.
I love that. So rewinding a bit,
Hmm.
you started off as a broadcast journalist in local
Hmm.
TV
Hmm.
in the United States,
Hmm.
and you had this incredible rise in trajectory. You were anchoring for CNN.
Hmm.
And are you dating along the way as your career is rising? Are you feeling like you're able to invest that in your personal life?
Probably not that much. I when I say I was like raised very traditionally, I literally at first I went to a Baptist school when I was younger, and then in eighth grade I switched to a Catholic girls' school. If that
So
gives you
you've run
any
the gamut.
idea of how
I grew up
limited.
Baptist too, so I get it. Yeah.
Girl, I know you do. I
Yeah.
know you do. Like it was youth
Yeah.
group on like Wednesday, sometimes on Tuesday. So there wasn't a lot of dating. Um, so no, I really did not grow up dating. And then when I got to college, um, I did end up becoming involved with someone that ended up being a constant in my life and not in a good way. So it was basically the first boyfriend I had. And because he was the first boyfriend I had, I got way too attached to him because I was so naive and inexperienced. I remember thinking when I moved to Atlanta for CNN that that was definitely when I was going to meet somebody. Okay, it didn't happen there. And then I'm like, okay, I'm moving to New York. There's 8 billion people here. So it started to dawn on me in my early 40s. My career kept rising and my social life wasn't. And I was like, okay, if I actually want a child, at some point biology is what it is. And I need to be more proactive about that. And by this point I was making pretty decent money. So I had already considered egg freezing, and I'd actually had a friend mention it to me in my 30s. But I was like, I don't need that. It's all going to work out. Well, by
Yeah, it's gonna
40
happen.
something, it had not
Yeah.
worked out. So I think I briefly, for a minute, considered doing IVF with the sperm donor in my 40s. But at that point, I still thought, I don't want to be a single mom. I don't want to do this alone. And at that point, it wasn't necessarily because of like a stigma of a single mom. It wasn't that. I just didn't want to do it alone. Like it's a lot to raise a child by yourself, right? So what
Hmm.
I did is I froze my eggs, thinking it would just give me more time to, maybe meet somebody. I had mommy fever, but I didn't have like baby fever. And I even felt like my mommy fever was kind of late coming on. I didn't really feel that very strongly until late 30s, early 40s. And it would start
Do you
being
think
like
it was because that opportunity was becoming less likely?
I think I think it's because I was just so focused on my career for so long that um and my career was fun. Like it wasn't perfect. There were ups and downs. There were times I hated it and times I loved it, but overall, it was treating me really well. So I felt like it was allowing me to fully experience life. Um, and there wasn't ever a time when I'm like, I was glad that I was able to travel and do all these things, right? So, and I think once that started to run its course for me, that's when I was like, okay, I've done this. Let me pivot my energy to something else. So I kind of think that was the order for me.
Were there people you were letting in on this journey along the way so that you could grieve with someone or have
Um,
joy with someone?
That's a good question. The egg freezing part, I didn't even tell my parents until after I did it. Um, and to their credit, they never guilted me. They were never the kind that were like, when are we going to get a grandchild? They were probably thinking it, and they may have had those conversations with themselves, but they never made me feel that way. But once I finally, I don't think I remember. The only person I had the egg freezing conversation with was a friend of mine who worked for a fertility clinic, and she was the one in my 30s who planted the seed to think about it. Okay. And then when I circled back in my 40s, um, she was still doing PR for them. And so I reached out to her and then maybe 2 other friends, and that was it because maybe it's the only child in me. I'm just a very private person.
Were
That's
there
it.
any people in your life that were kind of giving you grief or narratives that you were hearing that were not supportive?
No, but I remember this in my 30s. I had a colleague one time, a male colleague, he was my co-anchor, but he was older than me, which we know is very common. in local news that the woman is a lot younger than the guy. And he was at least 10 years older than me, maybe long older than that. And I remember him saying to me, so this is when I was living in Vegas, morning anchor, everything was fine, having a good life, wasn't even thinking about family and kids. And he said to me, "Well, don't your parents want grandkids?" Just and I looked at him and I was like, "Well, you're older than me." But people feel that they can say things like that to you. Well, you're older than me. Don't you want a family? But he felt completely okay. But I can say, now there may have been people saying those things behind my back. I'm not trying to paint it as rosy because people do still think really screwed up things about women. But we have come a long way in having the freedom and the space to build families the way we want. So no, I did not get that type of feedback. No.
Okay, so you are in the IVF phase. And then so you're 43 to 49. So are
So
what are you
at this point,
yeah, give me the timeline.
I got Avery when I was 49. I did the IVF and pivoted to adoption when I was 47. Um, so at this point, I am in Doha and I start doing paperwork with adoption agencies, found an adoption consultant, all the things. And at this point, what I'm trying, so this is another thing that I'm like, I'll cross that bridge when I get there. The other thing I'm thinking is, suppose I end up, getting a child. Do I want to raise my child um, living in the Middle East when the rest of my family is on the other side of the world? And the irony of Doha, which you will understand, is it's actually a great place to raise a family. It's
Yeah,
not
talk
the
about
easiest place,
safety and
all of it,
gun
all of it.
control.
Yep, but it's not the easiest place to get a family if you don't have one. So that was the irony of it. And honestly, if I could have convinced my parents to move to Doha, who knows, maybe we'd still be there. But I just kept thinking, in my mind, my plan was I'm going to adopt, and I was going through American adoption agencies. I was like, okay, I'll have to go home, take a couple of months off, adopt, go through the process, and my child and I are going to come back to Doha. Because, again, being single, I'm taking care of me, and it was not a small thing to walk away from a very well-paying job. So at first, it didn't really occur to me to just quit and go home. I had a friend that had planted a seed a little bit before that to say, have you ever thought about taking a sabbatical? And it had never crossed my mind to just like quit working. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Especially when that's like your identity in so many ways.
Completely.
Hmm.
Completely. And I had worked really hard to get to this point, right? So it
Yeah.
just never crossed my mind. But as I was going through the adoption journey, it's just started to become really, really clear that what I was wanting to do wasn't practical, that I wasn't going to be able to go home, get all the paper, get the process complete and be able to legally leave the States with the child in just a few months. Like it wasn't making sense. So, and then COVID happened and I and COVID is what really made me realize it's time to go home. One of the triggers, I forgot about this. Um, the way the adoption process was working is you put together an adoption book. And the agency that I was dealing with, they would send you information about a birth mother and a baby. And in most cases, the baby had not been born yet. So they would send you, and then they would say, if you're interested, we will show this birth mother your book. And then she may want to meet you or she may pick somebody else, right? So there was a one baby that I remember saying, okay, give this birth mother my book. There was just something I felt about this. And it was actually a couple. Um, and they ended up not picking me. And my agency said that they actually did like your book a lot, but they didn't like that you lived overseas. Now, this is where it's tricky. The way adoption is, the child is legally yours. You don't ever have to let the child see their birth parent ever again if you don't want to, or you can. So in theory, it shouldn't matter where I live, like because
No.
you're not. Now, having said that, I am perfectly open. I'm okay with an open adoption. But it really shouldn't matter where I live because you're not allowed to just pop up and see the child when you want anyway.
But I
Okay.
guess it's that sense of the unknown and quality of life that
Complete. Yes,
you
yes,
just
all
don't
those
know.
things. And that's the resolution I eventually came to in my mind is they're allowed whatever criteria makes them feel okay. And I started thinking, I wonder if I'm going to keep running into this, that I'm going to run into people that don't really understand the Middle East, too, that they don't really get, that your child is going to be safer here in the Middle East with me than right here in Houston, right? So there was a lot of factors. So there was COVID, There was the fact that I had already started to feel like there's only so many more brunches I can go to. Like the whole lifestyle was running its course.
I
You know what I
understand
mean?
that feeling. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, Hakkasan is great. So is
Uh,
Nobu, but
it's like
like,
and it was lovely, but I was like, I think I'm maxed out on what, right? So
mhm.
all that is what prompted me to finally tell the boss, I'm gonna go home. And that's when he was like, well, go home, take a year off, get your kid, and come back. And I just knew, particularly as an only child, it would not have felt right. And I know people make different choices for different reasons. I know there are a lot of people in Doha whose family lives on the other side of the world, and they are there for all the right reasons for them and their family. And planes do exist. Okay. So, yes, my parents, but with me being an only child and a single mom, I really needed to be around a family unit to help me with whatever child I ended up with. So I quit without having another job lined up, which was scary, Leah, like
Yes.
scary. I had money saved, yes, but I'm not sitting on a trust fund. I'm not independently wealthy. I knew at some point I was going to have to work again. And I did. I was also privileged enough that if I had to move home and be paying rent, I would have flown through my savings a lot faster. I was very lucky that my parents had an apartment above the garage. So I was able to move home and have my sense of autonomy and my privacy and not have to be spending money on rent. So that helped me have more time to get my head together.
You're like, I'm going all in on this. Like, I really believe that this is what is
Yes.
going to
Yes.
happen. And so then when did you hear about Avery from when you moved home?
The thing about Avery is I think I mentioned this earlier, often when women are going through this process, often the birth mothers are still pregnant, right? So Avery was already born. My agency called me and said that it was this Saturday morning, I remember, and it was during COVID, that they had a birth mother come, no, no, that they had a mother come in and her baby was 6 weeks old. And she'd really tried to keep him. She really thought she could. And I don't like to go into a lot of detail about this because I feel like Avery's getting older and this is his story to tell. But
100%.
let's just say he was already there, and she said we're calling ahead of time before we show her your book because we only want to show her your book if you're actually in a position to take a child now, as opposed to
Mm.
if she were still pregnant, I would have time to be getting all the things. Leah, I had not bought anything, like nothing,
Oh
like
my gosh.
not a diaper, not a
I have
stroller, because
goosebumps for this story. Yeah.
I thought I would have time. So I
Right.
said, sure, show her my book. So and they were in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and I live in Houston, and that's about a 3.5 hour drive. So they showed her my book, called me back that day, said she really likes you, she wants to meet you. Can you get here? So the next day, my mom, my dad, and I drove there, and that was Sunday. And then by Wednesday, I physically had him. So it took
Wow.
forever, and then it happened like that.
Yeah, it's like
And
6 years and then
yeah,
just 3 days.
and now he's going to be 5 in January.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's crazy.
What, when you look back on this journey, what are your like overarching feelings or thoughts or themes of like, I'm really glad I did this or I see this so much clearer now?
That fear is a liar. Fear will have you thinking and believing all kinds of things that are absolutely not true. It will have you questioning what you're capable of. Um, Fear is the bad guy. You are also capable of far more than you think you are. Um, whether that's professionally or personally, we all are. And you don't know what the future is, and that seems cliche, but I mean that in the sense that the future, literally what's around the corner can be awful, because I think we all know that life can change in a moment's notice, as we have learned through the last years of what we're living through, but it can also change for the best in a remarkable way that you never could have pictured for yourself. Um, so I think I would say do not be married to any specific journey. Um, because you don't know what that journey is for you. I never thought I would be 54 with a 5-year-old, um, not doing what I spent my life building to do, and I am incredibly happy. Still open to maybe getting married, which would mean, I don't know, leaving my house, so we'll see if that ever happens. But And even that, if this is what it is, if it's me and Avery and nobody else, I don't feel like I'm missing a single thing. And there was a time in my 30s that I just couldn't have comprehended that. I'm not missing anything. We are not missing anything. So,
Because when you're with a partner, they don't complete you. Like you
at
are
all,
your own person.
at all. I could
Yeah.
not agree more. And yes, that's a good way and that's why I don't feel like
Because you
I'm
aren't
missing
missing
something. I'm
part
not.
of
We
yourself,
we
at
should
least.
bring our whole selves to the table. And I will say this too. Um, I do sometimes consider myself there's like I said, there's lots of pros and cons to being a single mom, and I've already pointed out some of the pros. Another pro is I don't have to argue with anybody about how I want to raise my kid. Now, having said that, when a partnership works well, I'm not knocking it, okay? And
Right, right.
I may end up partnered, I don't know. But I look at some of the silver linings now, right? And it's me and him. But I also say too, and I wrote a piece about this, that just because I'm an introvert, that doesn't mean that I have to make Avery an introvert. So I try to be really aware of making sure that his world is broad and open. Just because I'm a homebody, that doesn't mean that my child should stay home all the time. That doesn't mean that my child shouldn't have friends. And that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be open to meeting somebody because there may be somebody who could complement our lives. So it's all about him and what's best for him, not the fact that I would watch Netflix with a cat all day if I could.
Well, wouldn't we all? That sounds like a dream. Yeah. Are there things that if you could tell your 30-year-old self, you would say?
Mm.
Especially in regards to, you're going to have a family one day, but it won't maybe look like what you think, and that's not failure.
No, no. Even before that, though, I'm being real honest. I would say put yourself first. I didn't get into it a lot because I don't really want to, but I mentioned my dating history, which isn't great. But I will say a theme of my dating history is I often did not put myself and my needs and what was best for me first. And it wasted a lot of time that I wish I could get back. It feels to me like you younger kids get that better than some of us older folks did. At least what I see on TikTok, y'all are on there talking a good game.
I
But
don't know. This podcast came out of some really bad decisions. That's the whole point. Yeah.
so I know you're feeling what I'm saying. And I mean that. That's something I really wish I'd internalized a lot sooner. Now, having said that, if all that got me to this point to be Avery's mom, then it was all worth it. But I can say what I would say to the younger me and what I would say to younger girls is nothing about that other person is more important than what's best for you. It seems simple, but once you master that, it can really shape and guide a lot of your choices.
Do you
So,
feel like there's a way to get to that point without making all of the mistakes in between?
God, I wish.
Same.
I will say this. You're probably the thing I just said. We're all probably still going to do it. What I will say is learn from the first time you do that wrong. I'm a knucklehead. I did it more times than I would like to admit. So you're probably going to go through that, but snap out of it. Once you realize it, do not make that same mistake again, and don't beat yourself up when you do make that mistake. That was kind of the cycle I ended up in. It's like part of me knowing I'm making bad decisions, and then I would be like, you know better, blah, blah, blah. And then it would just like be this cycle, right? When you do make those mistakes, forgive yourself and then move on to a new mistake, something else, something different. Just learn from it. That's the best I could say.
And you're so driven and headstrong with your career, and you trust your instincts with your career. Do
Hmm.
you feel like you were able to trust your instincts along the way in your personal life? Or
Absolutely
because
not.
I didn't.
No.
Like, you put all of your focus on, I know what I want
Yes.
professionally. And
Yes.
then I'm like, because I am so clear here, clearly the personal life will just follow suit. And then it's like,
No. And I think that where you and I don't want to speak out of school here, but I think that one of the reasons we both had a similar experience in that regard is because we were both raised very strict, very religious. I'm an only child and a girl. Like my parents just didn't let me do anything. So by the time I was out in the world, I was just really, really naive and didn't think I was, but oh my gosh, I was so naive. So, and I don't fault my parents. I mean, the world is a scary place. Every day I understand more why they did a lot of the things that they did. At the end of the day, it's all about keeping you safe, right? So I understand it, but it did backfire in a big way because nobody could eat me alive in my career. Nobody. But in my personal life, I was like, what? Huh?
But why is that? I mean, yes,
It's
background,
crazy.
but like, why is that? What do
I
you think it
think
is?
I think honestly, I think I think dating is something that has to be taught in a way. I mean, we felt confident in our career because we knew what we were doing. We learned it in school, we learned it in practice, we learned it by making mistakes. We built that muscle. That's why we didn't feel
So true.
threatened or intimidated. Or if you did, you pushed through and you learned the next time, right? I feel like dating is that type of muscle, and neither one of us was given the guidance or the
Especially
space
if
to.
you're like taught abstinence, you're really not taking
Girl,
dating classes.
just tell all our business. But yes, yes,
Well, yeah, there's like, well, surely there's no bad people out there, and they're all very healthy and
right,
mature
right.
and trying their
Sure.
best.
And
Yeah,
if he's saying all
surely.
these nice things, and that's who he is, and girl, no,
Hmm.
you have to be taught to have discernment when it comes to people, and we have, as journalists, we could smell BS a mile away in a professional setting, but in the personal setting,
Unless
and
they,
now,
unless they're super cute and they're like flattering you.
yeah, right.
You're like, no, 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 they mean so
They
well. I know it.
completely, right? And
Hmm.
like now, I have that skill in spades, but I did not have it. I didn't have it, and I think it's something that you have to teach. And you have to teach it. I think obviously on some level you have to teach it to girls more than boys, but you have to teach your boys not to treat people that way. And that's something that I am really going to own and do my best to do. I'll be darned if I'm going to raise a feminist, and he just is going to be, and I'm not going to
He
raise
has
that kind of
no
boy.
choice. Yeah, he's
No, he
going to be a feminist.
doesn't.
Yeah.
He's not going to have some girl washing his clothes and all that nonsense. Like, so we have to tackle this on multiple fronts.
I mean, I don't even know where you begin with that other than to show by example.
That's what I'm going to try to do. And I am very, very lucky that, like I said, I have to be intentional about things because Avery, doesn't have a father in his life, but I have the best dad ever created in the history of dads. And he is very present and sees Avery all the time. And he's a great person, a great father, a great husband. So yeah, we're trying to do things by example. And the way I talk to him about things, yeah, I'm gonna do my darndest to get this right. And I'm not saying he won't still make mistakes. He may be a jerk from time to time, but I'm going to do my best to get him to know that he needs to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
How does it feel to like have come from such a traditional family to then having a child in such a non-traditional sense, but he
Hmm.
still is in such a loving and caring and incredible home? Like, how has that been for you to, I don't know, is that like a release of having to
It
be
it it
perfect or
feel
what?
it feel they don't feel like they failed because our daughter didn't get married and went adopted a child as a single person. Like we don't feel any of that. It's not something we internalize. It's not something that we deal with. We're very proud of how our journey and our family turned out. Um, and that's the kind of people we surround ourselves with. Like even the church that we go to is a very non-traditional church. It's very accepting of gay people. Like it's just that's the world we're choosing to surround ourselves in. And he actually
Amen.
goes to a black private Christian school that is probably more on the traditional side, but I feel like traditional is starting to mean something different too, which I value, right? Like his everybody knows he's adopted, they know I'm a single mom. There's just none of that judgment. And I do feel like too, because of what my family unit is with Avery, there's going to be different types of conversations I have with him, which I think is good. Like I've had conversations with him about, you know, some families are mommies and daddies, some families are mommies and mommies, some families like so. Just by virtue of what our family is, it forces a broader worldview for him, which I'm trying to be very intentional about.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that.
And he knows that mommy used to live in the Middle East. Like he has a little globe that's actually right over there, and we'll pretend like we're flying a plane and where he wants to go, and he'll go all the way around and he'll point and he'll say, "The desert. Mommy used to live there in the desert."
Would you ever go back with him?
In a minute, girl, our old friends are always like, "I have a nanny. Just come for a month and bring him." So
See,
yes,
this is
yes,
what people don't know. Like, not only is it tax-free living,
yes,
but like child support lives
yes,
with you.
yes.
Yes.
All the time. Folly is always trying to get me to
Oh
come
my
back
gosh,
to me.
Folly would love
So
to
yeah,
have
no.
little
And I
Avery in
want
her life.
him. I don't know if you had this situation too, Leah. Tell me. I feel like because I've lived so many different places, my friends are spread out, right? And Houston is my hometown, but I left here when I was 23 and moved back when I was 40, 23. No, that's not true. I left when I was 26 and moved back when I was like 46, 47. So I was gone 20 something years, right? I Most of my friends don't really live here. I mean, I have a few, but so my village is spread all over. And it can be lonely. Like if you want to wake up, I mentioned brunches. If you want to wake up on a Sunday and say, let's do a girls' brunch, well, the people that I really do those types of things with aren't here. So I'm very blessed to have a village, but sometimes it's kind of sucks that the village is spread everywhere. So I feel like Avery already has a passport, even though we haven't traveled out of the country. But that's because,
He's
um,
ready.
yes, because I got people I need to take him around the world to see.
Yeah. What a
Yeah.
lucky kid though to have to know that the world is
Yes.
loving of him and that
Yes.
he has these family members all around the world. And also such a beautiful way to also continue to teach and show not him but others as well that family is a choice
Absolutely.
in like
Absolutely. Like I
yeah.
couldn't like I know I mentioned Folly. We've seen each other a couple of times since I left because we usually end up getting to meet up in New York during UN. Perfect example. She has never been able to lay eyes on Avery. If I had some sort of emergency and there was nobody else in the world that I could turn to, I would feel perfectly comfortable dropping Avery off at her door and saying, I need a month off to go do X, Y, and Z.
No
That's
instructions. She would
mm-mm,
be phenomenal.
and he would be
Yeah.
completely safe. So
Hmm.
yes, family is what you make it, and it will come together in ways you never imagined.
And I mean, Doha too, I think it's like the island of misfit toys is kind of
Yes,
how I
it is.
explained it to people. And so
Yeah,
like if you have anything that's unconventional, I feel like it flies better over there
yeah,
because everyone's a little different and
yes.
it's like such a beautiful cross section of society. And I think it's really cool that you have been able to like add to that narrative and that story in such a unique way because I don't know anyone else personally who has done what you've done and like the bravery that it takes to do that as
Oh,
well.
thank you.
Really.
I gotta say, I did not. You know, sometimes when you're in something, you can't tell. It takes somebody from the outside. One of my good friends who's a journalist, was the one who said to me years ago, she's like, once I got Avery, she's like, you're gonna have to like talk about this publicly. And I was like, what? And she's like, this
Yeah,
is like a
everyone's going to want to know
story.
about this.
I was like, are you kidding? Like, it took a minute for it. And I promise you, and she was the one, she's like, okay, so when you're ready to actually acknowledge that this is an interesting story, I'm going to hook you up with X, Y, and Z. And then once Avery turned one is when she hooked me up with a journalist at Essence Magazine. And that was when I first
Yes.
started talking publicly, and it
Great
took off from
article.
there.
My last question is this podcast is very much centered around like self-advocacy and breaking societal norms in order to follow your gut because your gut often is anti-societal.
Yeah.
What are some ways today that you have found that have been helpful to help you self-advocate in little ways or big ways?
When I was transitioning into, no longer being an anchor and being a host or a moderator, I remember at first some of the panels that I would be moderating would be these really big C-suite executives. And I remember being intimidated from time to time because I just really hadn't done a lot of that. And it just seemed like these people were big and important. They're not. This is something that Michelle Obama has said, and I think I'm going to paraphrase it, but she says, I've been in the room with some of the most, high profile people in the world, and they're not as smart as you think. And that has really stuck with me to help me advocate for myself, to realize I deserve to be here just as much as anybody else. And I think if you truly internalize and believe that, you will always be able to advocate for yourself. You deserve. You absolutely deserve.
I co-sign on that one 100%. Richelle, thank you so much for being here and for being so vulnerable. A shout out to all our Al Jazeera people, and
Yes.
it's been so lovely to reconnect with you like this.
You too, dear. I'm really, really proud of you. Like you said, we keep in touch and we watch each other from afar. And I'm proud of you and where you are and the journey that you have had and the things that you have spoken out about, even when it wasn't easy. I am older than you, but I admire you a lot, and I think I've learned a lot from you. So I'm just excited to see what's next for you.
Thank you. The feeling's mutual, very mutual. And do say hi
Excellent.
to Avery.
I
Some
will.
random woman in DC thinks he's awesome
No,
and is a
he.
fan.
I will definitely tell him. I will definitely.
This podcast was produced by the Anthology Group.